Lachlan, can you tell me what got you interested in applying to the grad program at Reece?
So I began applying to a grad program sometime in 2020. It was a pretty turbulent time with the pandemic and everything else. I was actually in a vicarious working position where I lost my job in hospitality. So I was initially looking for something a little bit more stable. From there, I was searching grad portals and LinkedIn to find suitable jobs. And one of many that caught my eye was Reece. I firstly have an interest in housing. I remember when I was a bit younger, my mother and I used to go through open house inspections and we'd always enjoy looking at bathrooms. I considered myself also to be quite handy and to develop a skill as well was something I had an interest in. But beyond that, the first point really, looking for a stable job and then happily finding myself at Reece sometime after that.
Can you give me a high-level walkthrough of the grad application process at Reece?
After my initial experience of seeing an ad for the grad program Reece, I went through the online portal, read a little bit about the company, decided I wanted to work there. From there, I applied online. They sent me a little form to submit some questions, such as what I enjoyed about their values and why I would want to work there. And within 2 days, I got a call from a recruiter. My recruiter's name was Jordan. He made me feel at ease. And after a brief conversation with him, he decided it was time for me to have an interview. That interview was lucky enough to be in person when I met two senior leaders of the business. We had a 30-minute interview, and a week later, I was told that I was down for a second round interview. From there, I met another senior leader from a different part of the business, at which point he discussed which different SBU I would be most suitable to. After the conclusion of that, we decided plumbing or bathrooms would be a suitable place for me, and then we'd explore that when I'd start my job in March the following year.
So what was probably the hardest part of the graduate application process to Reece?
For me, the hardest part of any application and the grad process is being a mixture of being your true self and not trying to be too impressive. I think often we'd get into this bit of a problem of trying to talk yourself up too far. And often people can see right through this. So you want to be well presented and present yourself very nicely, but also just be true to yourself. Let your true personality show. And it really comes out in the interview time if you are being true to yourself.
What was the trickiest interview question that you got asked during the graduate application process at Reece?
There was definitely quite a lot of difficult interview questions, and some of them were often the most generic ones. Questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or what is your greatest weakness? When you think about what your greatest weakness is, often people say things that are completely not true. Hey, I don't have any weaknesses. And I think you have to find a balance between being honest and knowing what a weakness is. But I think when they ask these questions, they really want to know that, one, you can identify it, and also you're willing to put something in place to change it and make it better. It's less about not having weaknesses or coming across as being very attractive, but it's more about being honest, knowing your weaknesses, and putting things in place to make them better.
What was the number one thing that got you successfully through the graduate application process at Reece?
The thing that made me very successful in my application to Reece was honestly just being myself. I came knowing the Reece values very well, and I read through the website, and I actually visited a branch before heading in. They seemed very impressed that I'd been to a branch and I knew a little bit about the company before applying, and that sort of made the conversation a little bit easier. That and just responding to your interviewers very well. For example, I could tell one of my interviewers was trying to wrap up the interview, so we sat there and talked it through towards the end, which made the whole thing come down really nicely.
After getting hired into Reece's grad program, what did your first 2 days, weeks into your onboarding process look like?
The first few days in the Reece grad program. So day number 1, you visit your branch. So the way the program is structured is you do some branch time to understand your customers and the business in total. My first day rocking up to a branch, serving business plumbers was very nerve-wracking. It wasn't necessarily what I'd done at uni, and I wasn't really sure what I was there for. But it made it very easy that I ran into my mentor on the first day. He showed me around, introduced me to the branch manager, and all of a sudden I felt the part of the career became easier to get to work.
What's the coolest thing you've gotten to work on so far as a grad at Reece?
The coolest thing I've worked on at Reece is actually one that I came up with myself. We often have people coming into plumbing branches wanting to replace toilet seats, and it was actually a very difficult process. And there wasn't really an easy way to do it. What you used to do is grab an old dirty toilet seat that someone had brought in and try and compare it to ones out the back. It was very unhygienic and it seemed actually ridiculous at the time, and it took ages. So I spoke to my manager, who put me onto our regional manager. All of a sudden, they put me into a team where we could come up with basically what we call now as a toilet seat finding tool. And they basically partnered me with other people in the business and were able to come up with a toilet seat finder. People don't have to move and hold old toilet seats anymore. Eventually, they actually put my name on it because it was my idea. So being able to, one, voice something like that and also having the support network around you to bring other people from the business together, that was definitely the most enjoyable part of starting in a program like this.
What type of career opportunities can a grad role at Reece lead to in the future?
So a grad at Reece can expect a whole bunch of job opportunities. Firstly, I actually started as an ops graduate expecting to progress in the operations chain. Towards the end of my grad program, my regional manager walked into the branch one day and asked me how I was. And I told him, hey, I'm feeling kind of lost. I'm not really sure how I feel. And he goes, hey, that's not good at all. Do you want to get coffee next week? So come the next week, I voiced some of those opinions with him. I've been like, hey, I'm not really sure if this is what I want to do. I see myself in these other parts of the business. And within a week, he'd put me in touch with an HR person and they were exploring different places for me in the business. So if you talk about career opportunities and positions, the business is very flexible and they do honestly want you to find a place where you can be most beneficial for yourself and for the company as well. Definitely one of the most appealing things about Reece.
As a grad at Reece, what kind of learning and development opportunities do you get access to?
Learning opportunities at Reece, first and foremost, we have a very well-developed learning experience platform. This is basically a database of plenty of videos, all the way from very technical sales knowledge or even more functional, what does an inlet valve do? How do toilets work? All the way up to finance and all the other additional services we offer. Beyond that, in the Reece network, there's some very incredibly intelligent people. And just being that far away from them, I've never had a time in this business where I've asked someone for help and they've said they haven't had time for me. People are always down to have a 10-minute, 15, even 30-minute chat at times just to really help you with any problems you might be having. And the whole business is very happy exploring ideas.
As a grad at Reece, do you use any type of remote work from home or hybrid type work model?
As a grad at Reece, we work at this beautiful head office in Cremorne. My current team at the moment, we have about 2 days where we're encouraged to come to the office, Monday and Tuesday. The rest is very flexible. You can work from here, or in my case, my sister had a baby recently, so I spent 2 weeks working from Adelaide, and that was encouraged. I have a little home office set up at home, but most days I actually do find myself in the office. It's a great place to work. You need a support network and questions and that sort of secondhand learning where you hear a conversation behind you and learn something. That's something I really value. And also value being around people. But I prefer to come to the office, but we are encouraged to work, well, we can work from home when we want to.
What is your best piece of advice for any grad wanting to nail the application process to the grad program at Reece?
The best piece of advice I would give someone that is looking to apply for a job at Reece is mostly just be yourself. Don't try too hard to be too impressive. Don't think too hard about things and just be true to your personality, especially in the interview process. If you are struggling with this, I'd say just make sure you do your research beforehand. Visit a branch, read the website, read through the values. The interviewers will be very impressed with you reciting the values back to them before you've even started working with the company. I think this advice goes well for almost any job application.
What is probably the coolest fringe benefit that you get for being a grad at Reece?
Fringe benefits of Reece. We get a pretty hectic product discount. So if you do come to finding yourself renovating a bathroom in your future, or just simply needing a seat mixer, we do a pretty extensive staff discounts in that regard. The fringe benefits really come from working in a wholesome environment. The flexible working arrangement, the head office we work from, and other benefits that come from working there. Our head office has a cafe, a video studio, and also a yoga and relaxation room. And these little benefits all really come together when you're deciding to work somewhere.
What's the number one reason you would encourage other students to apply to the grad program at Reece?
The number one reason I would encourage someone to apply working at Reece is that you become a part of a family. Sounds like a bit of a cliche, but my newest team was so quickly to invite me to help me out with things. The whole culture of Reece is give everyone a moment of their time if they ask for it, and also work together to improve each other. And if you have any problems, voice them, and people will actively try to make them better, just so you benefit yourself professionally and even socially.